Now, listen, the other debate is I've done a bit of homework for this because I've watched twice, having fallen to sleep twice, the very long Ricky Gervais Netflix special where he got into, well, he's got into the trans row, and he's not the first comedian to do this. He's been very sort of inspired by an American comedian called Dave Chappelle, who's in that sort of spectrum of insulting anybody in the name of free speech. And look, it's quite funny, but the motives for this comedy is about challenging issues of free speech, because along the way they sort of make jokes in areas which aren't quite so funny, are they? I mean, he's got every right to be an equal opportunity offender. We'll talk about trans rights, and maybe the trans rights guys have gotten girls and whoever the he-she's have gone over the top here. We'll play a bit of the Netflix clip. Here is Ricky Gervais having a laugh.
Oh, women. Not all women. I mean the old-fashioned ones. You know, the old-fashioned women. Oh, God. You know, the ones with wombs. Oh. Those dying.
Those dinosaurs is what Ricky Gervais says, and we are absolutely privileged to have in the studio with us, and it's the first time she's actually been into the studio. All the talk TV presenters are jealous because we've got her here first. It's Kellie-Jay Keane. She's the founder of Standing for Women. A warm welcome to you.
Thank you so very much.
So, you know, we were all seriously annoyed by that enormous male swimmer winning the women's tournament, and, you know, there's a still shot of her jumping into the pool further than her female competition. She was something like the 365th greatest man in the world. She beat Olympic silver medalists to win this title. But, of course, the person that really won it was the person who finished second. This is the abolition of women's sport.
It is.
Let's say it clear.
It is. I mean, he's enormous. He's like 6'4".
What, like, I called her a she, just out of courtesy to her, but, like, what... It's a bloke, isn't it? But so what? But what should I... How should I call him her? What do I do?
Well, personally, I think if you start obliterating language and calling men she and women, then it's an insult to women.
Yeah.
So
I should... So if my instinct is that's a bloke...
Yes.
And he is pre-op, so he has a willy, it's a him.
Well, look, I don't ever use female pronouns or female language for anybody born male at all. It's your prerogative if you do, but I do think it's harmful to women's rights.
And that's the thing about this. I am absolutely fuffrunstled by this, because I don't know what to say. I don't know whether I should pay someone that respect if they identify as a woman. I know in other spheres how I should conduct myself, but my education on trans issues, and there are some genuine concerns with real trans issues out there, so for someone like me, if my instinct is to say him and he, is that what I should do? This they business as well, that's infuriating.
Well, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I think you have to trust your own judgment. But personally, I think that every time we dilute what it means to be a woman and use female language for men, we actually are in danger of obliterating women's rights. Because if we can't talk about something called a woman, and we don't all know in this room what that means when I say woman, if we have to use caveats, if we have to sort of, you know, you say bloke for Will Thomas, now called Leah Thomas, and then you have to say something else which tells us that he's not a bloke, then I just think we're in really dangerous territory. And it's all new and forced, and this is not a natural evolution of language. This is by force.
And you're never going to get a woman that's going to transition to a man and beat men at a sport, are you? I mean, that makes it so obvious.
Actually, that's the thing. There are sports out there where women are competing toe-to-toe with men, and one of the greatest stories to come out of British sport for about 40 years happened this year, and no one talks about it.
What's that?
Why? Because it's in horse racing and it's not sexy. But Rachel Blackmore is currently the best British jockey
but that's different,
in the world.
Isn't it?
And she won the Cheltenham Gold Cup and she won the Grand National, right?
But that's not about physicality, is it? There's always been female.
It's about physicality because the men are small. Okay, and she is the same size and weight as many of the men.
But where it's about power, a woman is never going to... A born woman is never going to beat a man.
No,
where it's about
what is great about that is it's true meritocracy.
Yes.
That's the great thing about horse racing.
And snooker and darts, you could... It doesn't have much...
snooker is. I think snooker is a strength sport, but certainly in horse racing, there is an equality.
Exactly, it's because it's strength. It's about strength. They'll never win against...
It's amazing. It's amazing what she's done. And she didn't come from nowhere. She's been near the top for about 10 years.
Well, we had the Fisherman of the Year yesterday on the show, and it was a woman who's won for the first time ever. So, you know, things like that, where you don't need... It was actually... Good. Yeah, but it's because that you don't need the power and strength. I mean, like that swimmer, swimming is all about the length of your limbs. And that former man was a foot taller, like you said. Her arms and feet are all bigger, so the flippers are bigger. I mean, it's so obvious that...
Well, go on, sorry.
So, Kellie-Jay, I was with Lord Winston this morning, and he actually corrected me on something. And so we were talking about... He went on Question Time because he's Lord Winston, and of course he never gets the J.K. Rowling treatment because he's a geneticist. He's a world authority on this issue.
And a man.
And a man. And I said, congratulations on what you said on Question Time, where you said, well, I'm afraid I'm going to upset a few people because it's a genetic issue and you can't change the internal parts of a chromosome. So you're a man, whatever you decide to call yourself. That's what he said. And I said, congratulations on a societal issue, point that you made. And he said, it's actually not societal, it's genetic. It's medical, it's scientific. He's right.
Well, he is right, and he's also wrong, because it is a cultural... Well, it's a cultural and societal
So was I right
issue.
to say societal?
Well, I think so. Look, it's not... Nobody's saying that these people are biologically anything other than men or women. However, we're pretending that how they feel in their heads, or how they say they feel in their heads, how they interpret their own feelings, is more important than their anatomy and their biology. So that is totally cultural and societal.
Right.
That's why we're teaching it in schools. That's why even kids are being pulled into this sort of trans cult. And that is societal. It's a very dangerous social contagion.
What am I going to say to my kids who are at primary school at the moment? It is a very traditional primary school.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, they adopt elements of the national curriculum, but not all of it. It's a public sector school, it's a state school. However, there are elements of private education within it, and so they take control of those things. What happens when they come home and explain stuff to me which is beyond my pay grade? What am I going to do?
Call Lord Winston.
Yes. Well, you could do that.
Could do.
Number one, well done on the good catchment area. Number two, I think what you have to do is you have to, A, always be honest. B, teachers don't know everything. C, go into your school. There are many places you can get a good guide to combat this idiocy. And I would recommend you do that. I had to go and see my own children's school, and they were going to get a lobby group in, a trans lobby group, and I was like, no, you're not going to do that.
No.
No, it's not going to happen.
You came up with something which I think is actually the kernel of the whole debate, which is teachers don't know everything.
Yes.
In other words, when people are so certain of their position, like so many progressives are, you know, they try to reach for a progressive conclusion to absolutely everything. They don't know everything.
No.
And that's the key, isn't it? These every single nugget of this free speech is open to debate, which is where the Ricky Gervais thing comes in.
Yeah, well, look, he's known about this issue a long time. I can absolutely, can't tell you why, I can absolutely assure you that man is not uneducated, and I don't think it's just a free speech issue. I think the reason he's talking about it is because it's absolutely ludicrous. It was gasping for comedy. I mean, what could be more funny than a 6'4" man racing against women and everyone pretending in that room that he actually was female, and he's in that changing room with those girls, you know, and when they object and say they feel uncomfortable because he's a heterosexual male, they're told they have to be quiet. Their parents were told if they make a fuss or talk to the press, those girls will be out. So it was absolutely gasping. I'm more concerned that people like Jimmy Carr, Frankie Boyle is well on the trans train, but some of these other so-called free speech will say anything comedians are absolutely not touching this with a barge pole.
An empty vessel makes the biggest noise. Kellie-Jay Keen.
She's even got the definition of woman on her T-shirt.
Ah, excellent. And what is the definition of woman?
Woman, noun, adult, human, female.
It is adult, human, female.
Womb man, that's what it means.
Yeah, womb man, right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll take it.
Yeah. So now we're going to ramp up the conversation here, because in the United States, and we all know what the old maxim is, if it happens in America, it's going to happen here in 15 years' time or so, mutilating children.
Yes.
Is that an over-dramatic way of putting it, or is that the real description of what's going on?
It almost underplays what's going on. Yeah, it's so barbaric. So in some states in America, age 13, if you're a girl who thinks she's a boy, you can have your breast surgically removed. Puberty blockers might start at the age of sort of 10. There's a... I can't remember what, an endocrinologist, and she will give testosterone to little girls at the age of 8. So,
with the consent of the child, who is not old enough to make those decisions, or the parents, who's driving this?
Well, there's a lot of collusion. So there's doctors, they make quite a bit of money. There's a pharmaceutical industry, they make a huge amount of money. They get medical patients for life. Once you can pull a child in at the age of 8, you've got a nice big income from that person. Teachers, counsellors, anybody you would want to go if you had trouble with your child, that's who you can access, who is fully paid up as part of this juggernaut. Bringing kids in.
Right, we're going to go to the phones, 0344 499 1000, and Khalid's in Leicester. Khalid, you are on Talk TV.
Hi, how are you doing?
Hi, Khalid. Welcome.
I think, we're entering very dangerous territory now. I mean, in the sense that we're trying to make everything acceptable. If for example, when we were at school many years back, many moons ago, you can say, I remember somebody wanted to marry a sheep in America. That wedding took place.
It did happen. That did happen, yeah.
Yeah. And what I'm saying is that, how far are we going to, go beyond nature? We're going to dangerous, mad territory whereby our future generation sanity is at stake here.
Yeah.
Honestly,
it's already gone, hasn't it? In some cases,
it has gone. It's ridiculous. It is going to such an extent whereby, in the future, you're going to have somebody saying, you know what, I love this house, I'm going to marry this house.
Yes.
It's going to get that sort of stage.
How do we combat it, in your opinion? What do we do to stop this?
You see, you've got to go back to basics. Whenever we go back to basics, look, a man is a man and a woman is a woman. If somebody wants to individually, personally change whatever they want to do, that's individual. But we don't in society make it such that we become, how can I put it, pushed into a direction whereby we're told to accept that is right. No, it is not right. If somebody decides they want to, grow different legs, on their body, or do all sorts of crazy things, whatever they want to have 20 eyes, for example, stuck on their stomach.
You can identify as an octopus, then, I suppose.
If somebody wants to do individually, personally, that's up to them. But we cannot make that a norm in society. Because
and not for children, never for children.
No, what I'm saying about our future generations, what the heck are we teaching them? If we look 20 years down the road, if we don't stop these things now, 20 years down the road, our children say, what the heck did you do to us?
Wasn't there a class where one girl decided what she wanted to be a boy, and sort of the other girls in the class were sort of I also can identify, and it was sort of, it's a bit of peer pressure, and there was that sort of thing happening.
It's a social contagion, so once somebody gets, and you get so much attention, you become the sort of king or queen of your class. Your teachers have to call you by a different name and a different pronoun.
And there was a girl that changed her mind, didn't it? She transitioned to a man, then she goes, I regret it now.
I was in the Court of Appeal for that case. It was frightening how learned people were talking about 10-year-olds consenting.
Kellie, you and Whose Army, it's not just you, is it? There's a group of you who are fighting this, because I would imagine your inbox is overwhelmed.
100%. Look, from all over the world. So I sell these T-shirts as part of raising funds to continue my campaign. I've sent T-shirts to a quarter of the countries in the world. Like, it is touching everywhere. It's textbook. There are many different threads of different approaches in the UK of how we're fighting this. I would say Standing for Women probably does it the best. But there are many different ways to approach this. Straight talking, no compelled language. Those are the first sort of fundamental ways of doing it.
Khalid in Leicester, thank you very much. Let's go to Anne-Marie in Hertfordshire. Anne-Marie, welcome.
Hi, hello everyone.
Hi, Marie.
Kelly, I just want to say thank you ever so much for speaking up for women in the way that you do. I really appreciate it. Myself, in this whole conversation, I feel very confused as to, as a woman, who am I and what am I supposed to do? If I stand up for women's rights, I'm suddenly a TERF, which is an expression I've never heard of before. If I support, trans rights, I'm suddenly against women. I'm very confused as to, as a woman, exactly where I'm supposed to be, if that makes sense.
It does. My advice would be, what do you want for the most... So think of the most vulnerable woman in your life or the most vulnerable girl in your life, and then what do you want for her? Do you want her to be able to go to a hospital ward that is single-sex and not share it with men? Do you want that person to be able to, that girl, to be able to go in a public toilet and not have to share it with a man? So I think we have to forget what people are going to call you. You have to stand by what you fundamentally believe to be right.
No, it's not about what people call me. It's about, you don't know where in society, because you've got some people saying, oh, we don't even know what a woman is. So am I allowed to be proud to be a woman?
What are the laws as well on it? Are you allowed to say certain... Are you stopped from saying certain things now?
Well, we're almost in a position in the UK now where if I'm in a women's changing room and a man comes in and derobes and he's clearly male and I say something, get out, maybe use a profanity, I could do that, I could be criminalised and he won't be done for indecent exposure.
A hate crime sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah. So
how can that be allowed? How can that be allowed? Because if I was with you for some reason in that toilet, which I wouldn't be, or if I was outside, I was aware of it,
yes,
I would 100% be on your side, and surely the vast majority of decent people would. Why can't we just stand up against this?
Well,
this is a really tiny, noisy minority.
It is, but they're powerful, and they've basically...
They're only powerful because we're not standing up to them as a sort of general public.
Well... That is true, but that's because what's happened before anybody knew what was going on, there's been this really covert operation in order to get people into positions of power and to influence legislation. So by the time anybody's like, hey, what's happening, there's already crimes in place to criminalise anybody.
Let's go straight to the lines again and join Mike in Manchester. You're on Talk TV, Mike.
Hi, how you doing? You okay?
Hey, good, thanks.
Cool.
What's your question for Kelly?
Yeah, it was just a quick one. I understand that, Kelly, you opposed something that was happening in your primary school when a trans lobby kind of tried to come in. And I've got a little one. He's not school age yet, thankfully, but I don't see this, like, the madness really going away anytime soon. But I want to know what would you advise possibly the best way to oppose this kind of thing without making yourself and, more importantly, your child a pariah?
Right, well, I think you as an adult have a lot of power, as a parent, have a lot of power to talk to your school, and there are different ways to approach the school. You could start by approaching the teacher, having a really open and frank discussion about what they're going to teach your child. You could raise questions then. If that doesn't work, then you go to the head. If that doesn't work, you go to the governors. But you ask really basic, straightforward questions. Are you going to teach my son or daughter that there is no such thing as actual fixed biological sex? And to what end? So I think that's what you can do. You can also go to a website called transgendertrend.com, and they have a school's guidance. So that means you can inform your school about how to deal with this issue without actually penalising any children that are unfortunate enough to have parents who maybe have suggested to them that they are not really a boy or a girl.
And parents who abuse their children, yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
What happens in biology classes now? What do they teach in biology?
Well, even in medical school, they are teaching this nonsense. That, biological sex is not necessarily fixed, and they use terms like assigned at birth.
On chest feeding, and they have to ask men if they're pregnant, don't they? Or former men.
Can't have this.
It's bonkers.
It is bonkers, and I don't mind actually saying this publicly. I think we're in the majority here. I think most people are for this, and for you, Kelly, as well. Kellie-Jay Keane is here with us in the studio. Plenty of callers. James in Cheshire's with us. James, welcome.
Hi, yeah. Well, I mean, I've got no kids of my own. I'm 53 years of age. I mean, when I was at school, we never heard about any of this. It was male and female, pure and simple. But what I think's happened basically is, and a lot of people won't agree with me on this, I think the left in general, 30-odd years ago, realised that the Conservatives get elected more than they do, and they thought we'll brainwash kids. And they've been brainwashed ever since, with transgender ideology, with woke ideology, and left-wing bias, and this is what it's all about, brainwashing kids.
I'm going to expand on that, James. It's a very important point you make. We need to stand by our beds as who we are. Do you think some of the kind of moorings, the social moorings, have come up, enabling this vacuum of new belief systems coming in? If people perhaps resorted to perhaps who they were in religious terms, that you would be more certain of your position. So, for example, if you're a Catholic, and the Catholic Church has a very clear view on this, the Jewish religion has a very clear view on this. I don't know what the Church of England's going on about at the moment, but that's not the point. And Islam, of course. Can't you just say, but I am a Hindu, I'm a Sikh, I'm a Jew, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Catholic? No.
Well, I would have thought so until we had the parents in Birmingham, where their school was targeted by a woke activist, and I think he was a head teacher there, and he wanted to introduce LGBTQ+ nonsense, and I don't mean that LGB is nonsense. I mean that it's totally co-opted by T. So when you talk about LGBT, you're really only talking about T. And that teacher targeted a very religious school where the majority of parents were Muslims, and I would have said 2 years before that, if you'd had Islam versus, or Muslim people versus LGBT, the Muslims would have had it. And unfortunately, this agenda is so powerful, it even went against the religious freedom of those parents.
Kellie-Jay, why is it so powerful? Who's running this? Who are they?
Well, maybe we don't have a genuine civil rights fight anymore, and somebody wants to make a lot of money, and Stonewall made a lot of money, and then gay marriage happened, and what are they going to do?
Well, they have the loudest voice, don't they? And the people against it think, well, we better be quiet. And so in the end, you're only getting one side, aren't you?
But before, like, gay marriage is clearly something that most people either don't care about or absolutely support. Yeah. And so that was a lot of money. It was a big old fight.
Yeah, but you don't hear about from the people who don't care, because they don't care. So you only hear the one side. So that's how it all happens.
But now what happens to Stonewall? Where are they going to continue raising funds, and for what? And so now they've come up with other fights, and their current fight is transgender
That's
ideology.
Absolutely fascinating. And I know this is discussed in Douglas Murray's book about the unending progressive route as victories like gay marriage are achieved. Gemma in Lichfield's with us. Hello, Gemma.
Hi.
Hi, Gemma.
Sorry, I've never spoken to you before.
Well, it's our pleasure, and
You've
you're welcome.
You've spoken to me before, Gemma.
Yeah.
So what do you want to talk about? What do you want to say?
Oh, I've just got a little story. It won't take long. It's nothing to do with Wales. So I was on radio one night when I was feeling bipolarish, and I retold a story of when I was a manager of a girls' football team. Yeah. And it was a long way back in, kind of a long time ago. Like, it's the kids that were playing are little dots.
Yeah.
Then. But now they're grown women.
Yeah.
And it turned out my team lost 7-0. They were all girls. But one of the girls, and the BBC said, when I retold this story on the best other broadcast, please just leave out the trans bit. So now I'm not going to leave out the trans bit.
What is the trans bit?
The trans bit is, I said, the captain of the other team that beat us 7-0 identified as a boy, and the whole of the greenery where we was, because it was like, do you remember that thing, Ash? Building for the Future, was it? Or Green Parks for Everyone, was a boy, and she, bless her, was going around saying, I'm a boy! And then all my team were going, she's a boy! And the BBC said, you can tell the whole story, but it's a bit touchy at the moment, don't mention that bit. And I just thought, ah!
Thank you, Gemma.
Thanks, Gemma.
Okay. Good. Well, I don't think we've got... Well, I mean, unless... we've got Ken in London now. Let's move on to Ken. Hello, Ken.
Good evening.
You're with Kellie-Jay, Jonny and Ash, here on a Saturday night. What's your question?
I don't have a question. I've just got some statements, if you don't mind.
Fire away.
A woman is a grown female human being, as your guest has already said. A woman has a womb, a uterus, and a cervix. And there are only two sexes, male or female. And there are only two genders, male or female. To say there are 100 genders is absolute nonsense. Now, how can we get delivered from this folly which has taken over the nation? I can tell you how we can be delivered from this foolishness. We must get back to our nation's Christian foundations and the teachings of the Bible. Marriage is for one man and one woman for life. The family unit consists of a father, a mother, sons and daughters. This is God's foundations for humanity. Now, we have went into this sexual madness because we now mock the Bible, we mock Jesus Christ, we mock our Christian heritage, and our nation is now on the highway to hell. This is serious trouble, dear friends. We need to waken up.
Ken, we've spoken before, and I'm one of the only presenters who will not mock you for your beliefs, because I think that is a fairly decent thing. It's something that I reached out to you for just before the break, Kellie-Jay, that actually you have to have a certainty in who you are. And I think people are on the back foot because they've suddenly forgotten where they came from, who they are, whether they are Christians like Ken or Muslims or maybe like Khaled, I'm just assuming probably is, etc., Jewish people, etc. This is, we've got to remember who we are.
Well, I speak as what I call a gold star atheist, which means I've never actually believed in
You don't
God.
have to have a religion to be on a certain side, but I'm just saying that there has to be a certainty, a self-respect, a starting point.
Well, I would agree, but
gold star atheist.
Unless you're a nationalist or have, like, extraordinary patriotism, then I would suggest that a religion actually is more of a sense of belonging. And as we recede from collective beliefs, whatever they might be, and I would say that in this country Christianity would have been a collective belief, and we shared that they overlap with Judaism and all other world religions. But as we recede from that, then I feel that the vacuum created is the worship of oneself.
Yes.
And I think that is strange.
Ken, what do you make of that, Ken, as a believer, as a Christian believer?
That is a wonderful statement that lady just mentioned here. The worship of self, that's one of the extreme forms of idolatry, to worship self. Now, the human body is precious. The design in the human body is absolutely amazing. And if somebody wants to find out about that design, check out creation.com. It's totally scientific. It's not religious. Creation.com. Now, the human body has to be honoured, not abused. The human body today is dishonoured, abused, and treated as merely a sexual...
I think, Ken, you depart from Ken's views on homosexuality. You think that's an abomination, don't you, Ken, as well? And, you know, you think that should be... You know, you should only be a man and a woman. It should all be in marriage. That's your views.
The Bible teaches that all sexual relationships, homosexual or heterosexual, outside of a lawful marriage between one man and one woman, are sinful in the eyes of God. All sexual relationships, heterosexual or homosexual, God is against them, and God brings his judgment on those who are committing these sins. But he offers us forgiveness and a change of our lifestyle if we want it through Jesus. Now, I'm not a madman. I love Jesus, my Lord and Saviour. We are ashamed in this country, especially the Church of England, to speak up boldly and honestly about Jesus and the teachings of the Bible. We are afraid to offend people. But Jesus offended people, and he was actually killed because he spoke the truth.
Ian in Bristol.
Ian. He's not there.
And Q.
Jimmy.
Jimmy in Birmingham.
Yeah, hi, Johnny. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right, thanks, Jim. How are you?
Not bad. I'd like to say hello to Ash.
All right, Jimmy. Where are you in Birmingham?
This dude on telly.
Thank you, man.
What do you want to say to Kellyanne?
It's true.
Kellie-Jay.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
I'll tell you why I'm phoning. Kellie-Jay Keane, she's a big, big woman, and I've seen her many times. I think she's fantastic. And, you know, they keep trying. I've seen her in other things, and they try and catch her out and trip her up to make her say things so they can get an excuse to cancel her and rubbish her. you know, and she doesn't fall for it because she's very clever and intelligent. And I'd just like to say to her, I think she's marvellous, and well done.
Jimmy, thank you very much.
Thank you very
got
much.
Fan club number probably 1,000. Everyone loves Kellie-Jay. That's why she's here in the studio. And we're not going to... I mean, it's fair enough to challenge, because I do want to ask one question after Graham in Stokes on the line. Graham, you're on Talk TV.
Hello, Mike.
Hello, Graham.
It's Jonny and Ash.
I'll go
Kelly.
with Mike. I don't mind.
I'll be Mike.
I'm sorry. I just want to say a few things if I can.
Go ahead.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
I love your show. It's amazing.
That's Mike Graham's show.
I tell everybody about it. I just want to answer Ken from London, actually, because I'm gay and I'm an atheist. I mean, I don't believe in none of that rubbish about the sky wizard. You know, how can you believe in a book?
Don't insult other people's religions, okay? You know, it's okay to... You can not believe in it, but don't insult people in that way.
Yeah, but
you can do what you want, okay?
He's just insulted gay people, hasn't he? Yeah. By saying it's an...
He hasn't insulted them.
It's
He
an
has
abomination.
used his Christian values. That's not an insult. That's what he believes. He's not insulted you.
Well, you're insulted, aren't you, Graham?
I am insulted, yeah, and I'll tell you for why. Christianity, whether you're a Christian, whether you're a Muslim, it's all rubbish, in my opinion, and I'm entitled to an opinion like he's entitled to his.
Indeed you are.
In 2022, people need to get rid of the fear of death, because that's what religion's based on, corruption and the fear of death.
Yeah, and power.
That's a bit simplistic, but thanks, Graham. Catherine in Cyprus.
Catherine.
Let's go to Cyprus, where it's lovely and warm this time of year. Catherine, you're with Kellie-Jay.
Hello.
Hello.
I really admire you. I think you're doing a wonderful job, a brilliant job.
Thank you.
I've recently had a granddaughter. She's now 6 months old. And the idea that you are assigned a gender at birth is totally ridiculous. The baby comes out, you know whether it's female or male, surely.
You do know whether it's female or male.
100%. We need to get rid of that word gender. It's nonsensical and
well, they're the same thing. I think gender and sex are just the same thing, just two different words.
Well, Americans didn't like the word sex, did they?
Yeah.
Damn Americans.
No. We've got too many things going on with transgender and all the rest of it. And how come it's increased so much? I don't get it.
This is the thing, Catherine, that's a very good question. We talked about Stonewall having won their big generational battle about gay marriage, but with the idea of progressive politics is just you can never stop winning, and it's now gone into extremist territory. That's kind of what's happened, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, look, the explosion is all the places that I'm sure neither of us frequent, which is your more youthful social media. Of which their name escapes me, but my kids are on it all the time. TikTok, there's a lot of trans promotion on TikTok. There's a lot of there's a musician called Youngblood, and he brought out a girl onto the stage who then showed her double mastectomy scars, and she got a huge cheer from the audience. It was really profoundly quite upsetting, horrible thing to watch. But it's hysteria. And so all through these social media forums, there are people called egg catchers, and what they do is they go and there'll be men who call themselves women, and they will go onto these forums and they will pluck out vulnerable kids to sort of entice them into this, which sounds totally child catcher bonkers, but I promise you that's happening.
Is it a reaction to the right as well, like Trump in America, and over here we had Brexit, and is it a reaction, social media's reacting to all that?
I don't know. I mean, obviously...
Trump and Brexit are not extreme positions.
No, but, you know, they're by the woke brigade, they are, aren't they?
Well, I think they are...
Online.
That is a woke thing, isn't it? Like the fact that we protested more about Trump getting elected than anything that China have ever done is
Twitter
nuts.
And everything.
Yeah, it's just crazy. But the trans stuff is targeting more vulnerable kind of teenagers. That's the danger.
James is in Manchester. Hi, James.
Oh, hello, Jonny and Ash, and an especially big hello to Kelly.
Hello.
Who Oh, hello, Kelly. I absolutely adore. I've been following you, by the way, on not just Twitter, but I've seen your interviews all around the world, Fox News, all the rest of it. I think you're doing a fantastic job, and thank God we've got somebody like you. I am horrified. I mean, I am 55, I'm gay, I don't have children, but my sisters have and all that lot. But even I am absolutely horrified at what I am reading. I've done a lot of study on this, by the way, and a lot of research, and what is going on in this country is phenomenal. It's absolutely outrageous. And we have a situation in this country where we are trying to now normalise this. And what is really upsetting me is that it's now being introduced to 4-year-olds. And I'll give you 2 examples. In Scotland, you might remember, Kelly, I'm sure you do, that they recently gave all the primary school children a survey to fill in, and one of the questions was, have you had anal sex?
Yeah.
And the other example that I brought up on Twitter only 2 weeks ago, I'm surprised I didn't get banned from it, actually, but there was a group of 3 lobbyists that introduced a book to primary schools. They managed to get them into 1,800 schools already in this country. And I looked at the book, and it teaches primary, I think it's 5 in this country now, 5 and 6 years, the class of primary. And it teaches 5-year-olds that there's questions in it. Are you sure you're a boy? Are you sure you're a girl? Did you not know you might not be a boy? And there's an incredible section in that same book. I hope you look it up. I just wish I could remember the name of it. But it's out there. And one of the aspects of this book is it says you will only be defined whether you're a boy or a girl by a doctor somewhere in the hospital. You know, not that you are a boy. It has to be. Well, you gave a phrase out earlier, Kelly, and that's what it said in this very book. It's called "You will defined. You'll be assigned at birth."
Right. Yes.
And that's what you said.
Thank you, James. Kelly, are the government doing enough to counter this sort of incursion into the national curriculum?
Absolutely not.
They're not, are they?
No, they're not.
They really need to get on this.
Well, it's quite gutless. I mean, Sajid Javid said something about not transitioning kids or about women needing autonomy. Boris said something else. It's really not filtered down more than a couple of sound bites.
But the Education Secretary is in charge of the curriculum. Surely, I mean...
Well, you'd think, wouldn't you? You'd think, look, I mean, do they teach other dangerous ideologies in school? No. Do they say there's 2 sides to smoking? Like, some people really love it and it's also bad. No, they don't. So it's politically... Well, it's just cowardice.
Donna in London. Hello, Donna.
Hi.
Hi, Donna. What do you want to talk about? What do you want to say?
Yeah, well, I just want to say that, you know, I'm a big trans supporter. I've got trans friends, I've got lesbian friends, gay friends, and everything like that. But what concerns me more is this question about what is a woman. And I would just like to say what I think a woman is I was born a female girl, and I was born with a womb, I was born with ovaries, and I was born with a vagina. And that makes me a female. Yeah. A trans woman has surgical and medical intervention to make them a female, and that's fine too. But I would still like to keep my rights as a woman, a biological woman, to say that I am a woman.
Well, I think that is your right. I mean, I don't actually think that anybody can change sex, but I'm more than happy that you want to be recognised as a woman. I think it's important.
Kellie-Jay, I want to unpack the genuine concern of real trans issues, of people with real sexuality problems, because you have a sympathy for those people too. So, for example, someone like Kelly Maloney, for example, used to be Frank Maloney. What's your position on her?
Well,
she is a her, isn't she?
Absolutely not, no.
She's not even though she's had the operation.
I don't think that any man can ever change sex. I don't think any human can ever change sex, and I don't agree that anybody should be afforded the right to compel my speech to recognise any such thing, because I just don't think it's real. I certainly wouldn't read, if I was sat in a room with Kelly Maloney, I certainly wouldn't read him as anything other than male.
That's good to know, and thank you so much, Kellie-Jay Keen, standing for women. A lot of love here in the studio and out there. Thank you so much for a gripping hour.